So there's only a couple of things in my young life that really stand out. My family was as polar opposites as you can be. We grew up Italian, big family dinners on Sundays, all the holidays. It was just as different from hers as it could possibly be. Another thing notable in my background is when I was, for years I've said 7. My sister corrects me, apparently it was when I was 9. My parents were in a horrific accident. And I actually had to go live with my aunt because my parents couldn't take care of me. For any of you that are car buffs, if you go way back in time, you might remember the cars back in the 40s and 50s. The seat belts were connected to the seat. Now they're required to be connected to the floor. Our accident was part of the push to make that change, because the accident was so horrific that I think I'd get emotional. My mother was thrown through the windshield, but because the seatbelt were connected to the seat, she didn't fly out of the car. She actually was pulled back in. So she actually went through the window twice. So she was in the hospital for a year. So my father couldn't take care of me, so I lived with my aunt and uncle for about a year. But other than that, I had a pretty straightforward. Like I said, we had a more typical Italian background. Everybody had all aunts and uncles and cousins. There were 30 or 40 of us at my grandmother's house every Sunday. So when I met Rosa, we met at YSU in Italian class. I wanted to learn because I never learned from my grandparents. She thought it was an easy A.
That's so funny.
So we started dating. Her mother, I always say her mother didn't like me at first because she thought I wasn't Italian. And then she found out that I was Italian and didn't speak Italian. She liked me even less. But I wasn't extremely rebellious towards them, but I mean, I didn't put up with some of the stuff that they, we went out to movies, and I followed the whole guideline of being home by 10 p.m. But other than that, I don't think I followed all their guidelines. But we got married, and for all the women, who's in charge of a marriage? The marriage itself, the marriage ceremony. I always say it's the
plans.
Yeah, I always say it's the bride, right?
Yeah.
No, her mother. It was her mother's marriage. But the interesting thing that happened after we got married, I'm not going to go into a lot of the details, but I didn't really have a good job, kind of bounced around. And go back just a little bit, I had 4 close friends in high school. One was a year younger than me, and he had a brother that was either 1 or 2 years older than us. So I knew of him, but didn't really know him well, okay? So fast forward, we've been married a few years, kind of financially struggling, didn't have a really good job. This brother, the older brother, had moved to Texas. He calls me up and says, hey, I hear you're out of work. If you want to come to Texas, I'll put you up. I barely knew this guy. But he says, jobs are booming in Texas, come on down. So I packed up, left her and our one son home, went down to Texas. He put me up until I found a job, and then we went down there. But before that, as far as a testimony, I was an assistant manager at Red Barn, corner of Belmont Avenue and Gypsy Lane, if anyone knows who that was. So one day I'm on my way to work, and for some strange reason, instead of going down Belmont Avenue, I was going down, I think it's Andrews Avenue. I don't know why, but this, I would say a bum, because that's what I would have thought of him at the time, a homeless person, was hitching a ride. For some strange reason, I picked him up. I gave him a ride. And when I let him out, he got out of the car, and then he opened the door back up, and he leaned in, and he said, you probably won't believe this, but someday I'll pay you back for this. I'm thinking, yeah. So I go to the restaurant. It's real slow that night. And 3 young guys about my age come in and started talking to me at the counter and asked me if I'd come and talk to them. So I went over and sat down, and they started sharing Jesus with me. Then they asked me to come to the house. So I said, okay. So they came to the house. Turns out that one of them she went to school with, and apparently she remembers it as not being a very nice kid. But they shared Jesus with us. And things kind of fell apart even worse after that. So finally this kid calls me, we go to Texas, and I got saved the first time I stepped foot in a Pentecostal church. Remember to this day, it was called Braeswood Assembly. Rosa's salvation worked out a little bit different, but I think that was a pivotal moment for her as well, that we went to that church. And we had an apartment in a place called Cinnamon Lane, right outside of Houston. And God arranged it that everybody, the entire row, were all Christians. Everybody in that place was Christian. So we ended up with a Christian family, basically. We had holidays together, we spent time together, and a lot of the things that we didn't know about, they were there to teach us about the Holy Spirit, baptism, a lot of that stuff that we really didn't know. And they ended up being long-term friends down there. So that was really pivotal for us. We fast forward, things were good for us in Houston. I'm not quite sure how or why we kind of grew apart. I had gotten a college degree down there. I decided to go for a higher degree, so I moved to Indianapolis, and we ended up getting divorced. And I started dating another woman out there, and it was getting pretty serious. And one day, I said my prayers at night. And I don't think I've ever said these words before, but as I knelt there, I said, God, not my will, but your will be done. The next morning, I woke up, and God made it very clear, go back home.
Wow.
So I went back. She didn't want me.
Can I interject?
Come on, we want this to end well now.
Well, the reason why we were having a lot of problems was infidelity came into the picture. And we both strayed, both of us. I don't know if we thought the grass was greener on the other side or what it was, but there was lack of communication between Greg and I. We were always trying to make ends meet. We were always doing. We were always in passing. He would take care of the kids. I would take care of the kids. Even at one time, he forgot to pick up his son. I got up mad, but it was always strained. And so subconsciously, and we must have thought the grass was greener on the other side. So there was infidelity on both of our parts. And he did move to Houston, to Indiana. And in the meantime, I had sent our two older boys back to Ohio because I was working for the phone company, and I was on the bottom of the totem pole, and it was a matter of me getting laid off. So I didn't want the boys to start school in the middle of a school year. So I had called and asked my parents if I could send the two older ones back here to start school. And then when I got laid off, I would come back with the younger one, and I'll take care of them. So they did agree to do it that way. So come November, I came here to visit the boys and my parents and to look for work. The day after I arrived, my mother had a doctor's appointment, so I went with her and wanted to drop off some resumes. And we got as far as in the middle of Poland. There used to be a BP gas station there. As we pulled out, we got hit. And I remember the car circling a couple times, and I felt like we landed up on a hill. And with
By the way, a side note to that, the guy that hit her had 7 DUIs. 7, still had a driver's license.
So over there, I remember my mother trying to wake me up. She was slapping me in the face, trying to wake me up. And I didn't want to wake up. I could actually hear her calling me, but I didn't want to wake up because of everything that was going on in my life. And as I'm laying there, and all I could hear is this voice telling me I have to get up, it's not my time. And then the boys, our sons' names were called out one by one. And the voice told me, the voice, it had to be the Holy Spirit, was telling me that I was the only one that they could depend on, and I have to wake up. So then I said, okay, so I'm praying, and being selfish that I am, I was praying for myself. And then the Holy Spirit told me, aren't you being selfish? You're not even praying for your mother. So then I started praying for my mother. And then the Holy Spirit told me that we were both going to be okay. There was going to be no complications. So the ambulance, I heard the ambulance come. I heard them working in the background. They said they were going to take me first because I was in more serious condition. And then they were going to take my mom because my mother was awake and she was all over the place. She was telling them, my daughter, my daughter. So they took me, and then another ambulance came for her. Turned out I was in good shape. My mother, part of her eye socket fell. She had to get a metal plate in her face. She had a blood clot in her brain. So she was actually in more serious condition than I was. But since then, my mother always said that I was a jinx. And it was my fault, because wherever I am, there's always problems.
Oh my.
But long story short, we got back together, got remarried, and life's good.
Better than the day we got married.
Far better. Some parts of that just kind of blow me away though, because I know everybody here that's married, obviously other men think your wives are beautiful, but as an 18-year-old, seriously, she was gorgeous. I don't know where in the world they told her she was fat and ugly. She was not fat. That part is, I don't know. I don't know what was in their mind to suggest stuff like that. But it's amazing. I will tell you this. Rosa and I both agree with this. We are absolutely positively sure that God led us to go to Houston. We're not really sure that He ever told us to come back here.
Yeah.
But God works things out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So He worked around that and made it work for us up here.
Yeah.
So
Greg, tell them what you said to her when she said, "I don't love you anymore."
Oh.
Remember, because to me that's so cool.
she told me that she didn't love me anymore, and I told her that I had enough for both of us.
Wow.
And that one day I would learn to love him again. And the reason why is because of the infidelity. And
Enough with that.
okay, no. But I was listening to the 700 Pat Robertson on TV on the radio station. I was listening to him on the radio station, and he said, "I have a word for someone." He goes, "I don't know who it is, but you know who it is when you hear it." He said, "You know what the right thing to do is." He goes, "I don't know what that means," but he goes, "You know what it means." So before he even said that, I think it was a couple days before that, Greg asked me he wanted to get married again. He wanted to come back. And I didn't want nothing to do with him. And but then I heard Pat Robertson saying that, then I knew that was for me, and I had to go back. And when he told me, and I told him, and he said to come back, and I told him I didn't love him anymore. And he said that he had enough for both of us, that I would learn how to love him one day again. And so I stepped out in faith and obedience and did what the Lord wanted me to do.
It's amazing how God can work things out, because I was teaching college in Indianapolis, and I knew God telling me I had to come back. So I couldn't find a job in Youngstown. I did get a job teaching in Pittsburgh. I thought, well, that's closer to home, so I went to Pittsburgh. And this is amazing. Halfway through the semester, an opening came up at a college in Youngstown, and they allowed me to leave halfway through the semester. They got somebody else to cover my class in Pittsburgh, and I came to Youngstown to teach so that I could be closer to her. So it's kind of amazing that God would work out something like that.
Thank you.